Hi, today I'm here at the um, Forest Garden on the Dartington estate. Um, this project has been going for 30 years, and you can see behind me Martin has built this food forest, which he will explain is really valuable both for food production, for climate, and for boosting biodiversity. You can literally hear the birdsong all around. Um, it's quite a magical haven. We hope that this will be something that will continue in some guise or other. It's an incredible project which brings hope for the future, that there is a more sustainable way to producing food and working our land in a way that's sensitive and intentional. And for me, this epitomizes the sort of positive projects which we should be supporting here in Devon and in the UK. Something that's self-sustaining, both financially and also in what it produces, and is a real beacon of hope to others. It's now been connected to more than 50,000 people who have walked through the gates here in the food forest in that 30-year time period, and it's known about globally. So let's hope that there will be a future for this food forest here in Dartington.
I'm Martin Crawford. I founded the Agroforestry Research Trust, and I started this forest garden here in Dartington 31 years ago. So before that, I was an organic market gardener, growing annual veg, got sold in Totnes Market. And during that time, I discovered agroforestry, so mixing trees and other crops. And I discovered forest gardens or food forests, particularly via somebody called Robert Hart, who started the very first forest garden in this country in the 1980s. Visited him, saw what he was doing. He was quite inspirational. And I decided to change completely what I was doing. So instead of growing annual vegetables, I decided to devote my life basically to forest gardens or food forests. And we negotiated with the Dartington Trust in the early 1990s to use some of their land. So we're on Dartington Trust land. And the project started here in 1994. The ideas of forest gardens are that it's a very diverse system. We're trying to, in a way, recreate a natural ecosystem, but using plants of more direct use to us. So by trying to recreate or getting near to a self-functioning ecosystem, the place looks after itself to a large degree, because of course that's what natural ecosystems do. It's not completely there, of course. It takes some maintenance. You can't do nothing in this kind of situation, because it'll probably just turn into a native woodland if you do nothing. So doing nothing's not an option, but actually the inputs are very low because it does more or less look after itself. And it has a complex structure, which you can probably see, of different sized trees, shrubs, different sized plants on the ground. The ground is covered with plant growth most of the year in most places. That's important as well. So it's a bit like a sort of open woodland. It's a bit different, a different structure to woodland because there aren't so many big trees. These systems have a very long history, thousands of years from the tropics and subtropics. But of course, we're not in the subtropics, and you have to do things a bit differently here. And one of those things is you can't have too many big trees, otherwise it gets too shady to have crops at all those different levels, right down to the ground. So so the structure is very unique, and sometimes I would describe it to people as you start with an orchard of like fruit trees, and you diversify upwards and downwards. So you added a few big trees, and you diversify downwards, adding shrubs and perennial edibles down on the ground, and ground cover plants and so on. And you end up with this very rich, valuable, self-sustaining ecosystem type garden. It doesn't take a lot of work to maintain, but gives a lot of crops, out of a relatively small area. So the sorts of plants we grow here, there's lots of fruit trees. That includes all the normal ones, your apples, pears and plums, but also many different types of unusual fruit trees you can grow here. Includes nut trees, includes fruiting shrubs, includes lots of perennial vegetables, mostly down on the ground. But it includes also tree vegetables, so that's trees that you can eat the leaves of which there are several, which make very, very good eating. So it's actually a very diverse range of outputs, and of course everybody's forest garden is different, because they're all designed around a particular person's needs. But it's a wide range of outputs in terms of products or foods. In terms of wildlife, it provides a fantastic environment for wildlife. You can hear the birds around us right now. We had a bird survey done for 1 week last summer, and there were 20 species identified, which I think is pretty good. We've also, over the past few decades, we've had several invertebrate diversity studies done, so people measuring invertebrates here, and sometimes comparing those figures, with invertebrates in a native woodland of the same age, because this is largely non-native plants. It's about a third are native, and the rest are not. And if you want to grow food plants in Britain, you have no choice but to do that. And those studies found very high numbers of invertebrates in here, and much higher diversity than in a native-only woodland, which is very, very interesting, and showing the value of diversity, basically. And one of the other big things that this achieves is carbon storage. So over its lifetime so far, this forest garden's been storing about 5 tons of pure carbon per year. So that's about 150 tons over its lifetime. So that's a lot of carbon, and that's half in the soil and half in the woody biomass that you can see around us. And that's more than any other type of growing system. The only thing that can sometimes beat that, or even get to that level, is a densely planted native woodland, depending where it is. But in terms of growing projects, there's nothing that can beat that, and it's at the high end of what's been measured, in our climate. So about 50,000 people have come through this forest garden in its lifetime, which is pretty amazing to me as well. Those people are not just horticulturists. Obviously, it's of great interest to people into horticulture, but actually there's people from all walks of life have come through here. So school parties, community groups from business come round, and we relate the cyclic nature of what goes on here to cycles in business and circular economy. People from government, people from the Foreign Office have been round here. Even they find there's relevance to what they're doing. So there's people with forest gardens whose main aim is to help people with mental health. So they're invited in and find the space really useful. So there's people from kind of all walks of life really can find these kind of systems useful. So it's not just about growing crops. My vision for the future of agriculture in Devon is there should be trees in every field. The biggest benefits of having trees in field are carbon storage, shelter, so crops grow better or animals grow faster, and of course you get the crop from whatever tree it is as well, so it's diversification as well. And in a time of climate change, when our climate's appearing to be changing quite quickly, trees are much more stable than, in terms of crops, than annual crops. So anybody relying only on annual crops probably has quite a risky future if they keep down that path.
I'm hugely grateful to Martin for allowing us the great pleasure to wander around the forest garden and see how this project has come to fruition over the past 30 years. And as we leave, I wonder what the future holds, but hope that my children will be able to visit in 30 years' time